So it turns out Bubbleman has been stockpiling his own supply of dark chips. How? He's never been on an operation where he'd be given even one. He's not actually using them either, just storing them away, which makes them open season for other Darkloids that have become addicted to them, to my glee and his horror. Though my glee ends quickly, as Bubbleman's lack of dark chip use actually makes him an asset to Shademan, who's now looking to get his minions off the damn things before it kills them all. In the meantime, Netto and Mail have once more joined the Hot Springs Club in one of their outings. This one an exclusive resort up in the mountains where it's geothermically active. But with the widening divide between them, Dr. Regal, hey, he may still be in shadow, but the character actually has been introduced properly at this point, so there's no point in not saying it's him now. Anyways, Dr. Regal attempts to start making deals with the addicted Darkloids directly to get the dark chips. Burnerman speaking for the assembled that, yeah, they're at the point in believing that it doesn't matter what Shademan wants for them, they just want power. The power the dark chips give them no matter what. And thus, Bubbleman's part in this. Since he hasn't used one, he's not addicted, thus can act as a double agent against Regal to keep Shademan informed of what the others are doing, so he may eventually subvert Regal entirely after he knows who he is and where he is. But yeah, Burnerman's the first up for the next round, and that ties into where Netto and company are. Burnerman choosing a geothermal power plant for his own attack that if it's disrupted, could cause the magma chamber they're tapping to erupt. Thing is though, that the security Burnerman forces his way through is a layered one, meaning him brute forcing his way through the first layer tips off the real world operators to the danger. Or you could, have the power systems for the place not be put in as part of the network and actively isolated from it. I've talked about this before. Real world power generation facilities do not in any way allow for networked or wireless access to anything outside of them as part of their security against hacking and intrusion. Keeping them off the grid prevents such crises up front. It's only a matter of time before Burnerman gets through, but the facility is so up in the mountains, it'll take most of them forever to get up there. So fortunate then that Netto's already in the area to provide more immediate relief. If it weren't for Enzon saying he can deal with it himself and commandeering a helicopter to get up there. As for Netto and company... How is Adolf Hitler alive in the year 20XX? But yeah, the Darkloid screwing with the local network, that affects all sorts of geothermal stuff, including natural geothermal hot springs like where they're headed. Netto and Mail both scalded as the ambient heat skyrockets when they tried charging through the Hot Springs Club's usual nonsense to finally get in the baths. I admit I'm usually not on board these kinds of running gags, but it's a case where it works for me simply because subverting the bid actually causes consequences for those trying to get around it, thus reinforcing such in a non-caustic way. Similarly screwy antics happen throughout the rest of their trip, leading them to eventually realize something's up with the entire system, causing Netto to ultimately link up with Enzon and Blues on their own. The irony is, the mess with the geysers and other nonsense around town, that was Bubbleman trying to create a distraction. Had he not done that, Burnerman would have only had Blues to deal with, and Netto and Rockman would have remained oblivious to what was happening. Whether that was deliberate or not, considering how he was supposed to be a double agent, is questionable, but he's completely incapable of stopping them. But he did his job in distracting them long enough so the power plant takes significant damage from Burnerman breaking in, but it leaves a pretty clear trail straight to him. But not before he succeeds in disabling the heat regulation system, meaning all it takes is disrupting the underground magma pocket below them to cause an eruption, and that can be done via the dimensional area Regal set up in advance, which will allow Burnerman straight down to it. At least assuming the dimensional area covers that large a distance underground. Projection tech like this should only penetrate so far after all. I mean, volcanoes are in my top 10 for deaths I most fear, considering by living in Wisconsin, I'm in the death via suffocation by ash cloud range of the North American supervolcano, should that choose to erupt in my lifetime. Also a reason why I've never once considered visiting Yellowstone or any geothermically active part of the world. But to the entire human world, I'd call belief in that stupid if this were a human, but, well, self-created AI program. They're not exactly aware of how the human world works. This thing erupts, it'll be a tragedy for sure. People directly impacted will be in a bad shape for a while, but you're not going to shred human society with it. You're just a distraction keeping attention away from Regal's actual plans, dude. Anyways, due to the power of the dark chip, Burnerman envelops himself in a heat haze that prevents him from being destroyed on impact with the magma. Meaning, well, they've gotta do something drastic. Oh, wait about 9 episodes. But yeah, there's another chip that does the same thing Burnerman just did, which allows Neto to dive in straight after him. Now, how they even see each other to fight is a good question, since magma is basically just really hot rock. But they drag him out before forcing his retreat. The kids managing to get away from the worst of the heat before the dimensional area falls, and then joining Neto for a soak in the aftermath. Neto unaware that the hot springs still hadn't cooled down to tolerable temperatures just yet. But elsewhere, in a base forgotten by all, Shademan's obtained the blueprints to construct his own dimensional converters, which will potentially free his faction from the need for Regal. The wrap-up. We have Burn Baby Burn for all the heat-induced damage this episode. We have Disco Inferno for Burnerman's multiple uses of widespread fire destruction. We have Burn Baby Burn for Burnerman's plan to literally burn a village to the ground. And we have Burn That Mother Down for Neto literally turning himself into a draconic fireball to stop Burnerman. Surprisingly, I actually misremembered this episode pretty badly from childhood. I actually believe this was the last appearance of Burnerman in the show, and he was deleted here. That actually was not the case, but it would have been cool if it had been. No, the reason I never saw the episode where Burnerman would be deleted later is that episode was the only one of Axess's broadcasts to be Canada exclusive. We've not actually gotten to any episodes that have been skipped for Axess yet. Thus far, the entire first half of the season was broadcast with no major screw-ups to it from Kids WB side of things, beyond airing the first episode of it as a special premiere almost half a year early. That ends up happening more after this point though, and Burnerman as an antagonist of the week doesn't have much more life left to him, as you can probably tell from how his sanity is starting to slip. But yeah, as you can tell from the usual fare brought to us by Katsuhiko Chiba, while this episode may meander a bit with Neto's side in things, it works to ground the mundane once more with the cyberspace threats that can throw normal life for a loop in this setting. And it's honestly better for it. Neto once more at his best in being a responsible, smart battler, and it's the shenanigans he's dragged into that end up with him exasperated and unintentionally the punchline, as opposed to deliberately being made to be one. Even the camaraderie with Enzan and them both not getting caught up in their own egos was good. While I didn't comment on it, Enzan wanting to take up the duty for settling this attack alone was very well handled. It didn't come off as an arrogant claim of, I don't need Neto to settle this, but as if he was saying, he has a day off, no need to call him in when I'm covering his shift anyways. Like you would hear from any reasonable coworker. Then, when Neto does show up, he just rolls with it instead of telling him to go back. Well, this easily could have been an Enzan and Blue's solo outing story, with them taking point for the first time this season. It honestly works due to them doing the supportive buddy thing, especially since we're near the dead center of the season as it is, and Shademan's own plans in the background are going to throw the status quo for a loop soon enough.